What's the dumbest case you've ever had on jury duty? 1. A young lady was at her parents', and the parents were fighting, yelling, not anything physical. The wife says if the husband doesn't shut up she was going to call the police. So, evidently he kept on, and she picks up the phone and dials 911. The daughter grabs the phone and puts it down, and told them both to behave like you would with your children. So, they do. And everything is back to normal when they hear the police knocking on the door. The daughter is arrested for interfering with a 911 call. When this went to court, the state wanted her to get 6 months. We are all looking at each other, shaking our heads that something this stupid made it to court. Deliberation was very short, and of course she was found not guilty. 2 stories. I was being interviewed to become a juror. The inquiring attorney asked if you are shown pictures of the woman, taken at the hospital, that show her bloody and beaten. Will you keep an open mind if the defendant explains why he had to do that to her? I replied, why he had to do that to her? ? I was excused. The only time I was accepted on a jury, the defendant was being charged with DWI. The defendant was an older Hispanic man, and his story was that after work on Friday, he picked up his usual 12-pack of beer and 5 pounds of beef and went home where they had their usual Friday barbecue and beer. He had finished about half of the beer himself when his cousin called and said he was being arrested a few blocks away and to please come help him. The defendant said that he woke his roommate to drive him, knowing that there would be police, so he wasn't about to drive. Arriving on the scene, their car drove slowly past the cousin's car, pulled into a parking lot, and he got out of the car, from the passenger's side, and walked over to the cousin's car. The arresting officer put him in handcuffs and charged him with DWI because he smelled beer on his breath and was certain that he was the one driving as their car passed him. The problem I had was that the arresting officer said that his body camera wasn't working, so it was his word against the defendant. Folks, this was on a Friday night, in Inglewood, California. No officer, hoping to end his shift alive, goes on patrol unprepared. The officer's testimony on just about everything was not credible. I finally asked the other jurors whether they thought that the officer would leave for patrol with an inoperable gun or a broken Kevlar vest. The defendant was very open about drinking a 12-pack every Friday night after work while they enjoyed his barbecue. He was also very credible that he would have walked there before driving the few blocks, knowing that there were already police on the scene. Initially, most of the jurors saw a tall, white police officer against a chubby, old Hispanic man and were convinced that the officer had to be telling the truth. I was able to convince the other jurors to acquit the defendant simply because the officer wasn't credible and they hadn't proven their case against the defendant.